everyone. Okay, so today's topic is dashboard exports, imports, and deployment. So, in the schedule of Lunch and Learns, Caitlin and I were assigned pretty similar topics. So we've tried to really differentiate our presentations, and she's going to handle more of the deployment element, which it includes like putting things into menu items and how to publish and things like that. I'm going to do more of export and import because then I can give you a little bit more of an in-depth look of solution management and what that'll look like for you. So today our agenda is going to be mostly looking at Solution Workbench and how that works. That's going to be how you export and import items that you've been working on in Application Studio. So we're going to talk about exporting, importing, and deleting, as well as like specifics of version and kinetic versus classic, all that kind of stuff. Deploying and adding to menu items, Caitlin's going to be covering this in her Lunch and Learn that I think is going to be rescheduled for September. Okay, so for permissions, first we need to talk permissions. In order to use Solution Workbench, you need to have these permissions that you see below for wonderful Bruce Wayne, Batman. Right now he can't install solutions and he can't create them. So if you do not have access to user account security maintenance, make sure that whoever does gives you these permissions for your user account. Additionally, Solution Workbench is in the system management folder. You will need to have access to this pathway. So if you don't have security access to system management folder, the solution management folder, you will not be able to get to this menu item. So if you cannot find this menu item when you search, then you may not have access to its pathway. So just make sure you talk to your IT manager, or if you are the IT manager, make sure that you have access to that. But if you're the IT manager, you have access to that, I'm sure. All right, so let's talk about Solution Workbench. I've put the two versions up here so you can see it. It's the same application. It just looks differently if you're in Classic or if you're in Kinetic. I always am pushing people to Kinetic since that's the way we're moving. We're losing all these Classic forms. So get comfortable with Kinetic. Everything you're learning, do it in Kinetic. So if you use right now, you have both. If you're on 2025-1, you have the Classic and you have the Kinetic option. So if you use the Classic Solution Workbench, it's going to export as a cabinet file or .cap file. If you create a solution in Kinetic, it's going to export as a zip file. There is no cab file within that zip file, and you cannot convert it. So this is really important to know. If you are on the cloud and you're having a lot of updates and you want to make sure things are backed up and your solutions are backed up before 2026 comes in, I am not sure if the new 2026.1, where classic screens are gone, if their file format that they're importing is with cab or with zip. My guess is it's going to be zip because that's what they're using with the Kinetic, but I don't know. It may behoove you to have a version of both. So you might want to have a cab file and a zip file if it's something that's you've put a lot of work into and you're really nervous about losing, or an upgrade might corrupt something. Just make sure you have a local copy of that solution and then you can re-import it at any time. In terms of exporting, it is going to be cab for Classic, zip for Kinetic. But in terms of importing, you can only import cab files in Classic, but you can import cab and zip files into Kinetic. So they will accept cab and zip currently. Once again, not sure what the future is going to hold, but that's what they're going to be. That's what it is right now. And that's for both cloud and on-prem. So let's first kind of talk about how you create the solution, and we're going to talk about Kinetic because that's the future. We want to stay in the future. So Kinetic Solution Workbench, first we're going to create the solution, and I made a little video for you that demos that. So let's watch that. You do your little plus sign. You need a solution ID, call it whatever you want. The solution type, you're going to do that little search bar, and you're going to put all. There is an option to do tracked elements. Fred has said he's tried that many times and it never works. So Just do all for now. Type in whatever you want the description to be, and then there's also an area for notes a little bit lower. You need to save before you can add any items in. So this little area that I just circled will not, it will be grayed out until you save. Okay, once you do that, you're gonna search and you're gonna go to Kinetic App if you want to export your app. There's also an option for layer if you want to include your layer in there. But first, we're going to do one at a time. First, you do the Kinetic App, and I'm exporting a application I made. I think it was a dashboard. You can search in here using the filter. So I'm going to do a dashboard export, and you can see there, just make sure that there's only one item there. If you only selected one item, sometimes it'll accidentally select something during your searching. So just make sure if you wanted one item, only one item is there. And then when you add, I'm going to scroll below for a second. It should have the element as well as the application itself. You can add more here. So I could add the dashboard itself into this. If I wanted to, I could add, if there was a menu item attached to it, I could add the menu item. I can add in a whole bunch of stuff. So if you have a whole project with a bunch of different elements, it doesn't have to just be Application Studio elements. It could be report styles. It could be the actual RDL. You can add a lot of things into a single solution. Okay, so that is how you create the solution. And then let's move on to, now that you have your solution created and saved, you are going to want to build the solution, which is essentially you are creating it for an external save. So it's going to prompt you for a location to save the files. So this is about after you have your application that you built, you want to export it locally so you can save it and import it into a different environment, or import it back in if something gets corrupted in the future. So we're going to build the solution. So you're going to watch this. We're going to go to the overflow menu. You see that you can build solution, install solution, lots of different options there, but we're going to go build. All right, this one is fast. It pops up, hey, where you want to save it? This is the zip file. So I want to save it here. So I'm going to click save. It's going to prompt again. And this one's going to be the validation file. We're going to save that the same place, and it's going to prompt one more time. And this is going to be the build log. So the stuff you see here, build process started, all of those different notes, that's the build log. In there's, you want to look for errors first. So it's been created. Yay, everything's good. Additionally, on this one, I'm saving the validation hash. I've only ever had to use the validation hash one time. If you don't save it, it's really not that big of a deal. You don't always need the validation. I think I needed it one time for like a very different version between two different versions. But okay, so now you can see my zip file, my build log, and my validation text are all within that pathway that I requested it to be saved in. So that's how we build it, and now we have it saved. So at any point, I can import that back in, or I can import that into a different environment. This is great if you're doing testing within your test or pilot environment, and you want to move that solution into your prod environment. Okay, so now let's talk about importing. So we've exported it. Now how do we get it into our instance? In this import, we're going to do a zip import. I'm also going to show you a cab import so you can see the difference between the two, or the non-difference between the two. So let's go and play this demo. It's going to be in that overflow menu, and there's an install solution. So you go to that, do your little search. You're going to look for your pathway. Oh, there it is. There's my zip file. Okay, I do have a solution file, but you don't always need to add that. So here we're going to add it, and the validation comes in on its own. Okay, and if you scroll down, there's overwrite files, overwrite data, delete previous install. So if you have items with the same names, you may want to overwrite files so that if you have a BAQ with the same name, but there's changes on your solution zip file, you may want to do overwrite files so that that BAQ changes to whatever's in your solution. And you want to, at the end, check for errors. The save that I did was just the log. So it's just what happened during that install. It'll create a little file that has all of the details about how that install went. And then you can see that our log is in there. Our install log right here is in there. Okay. So that's installing a zip. Let's talk about installing a cab. So if you have like an older version of a solution from a previous Epicor version, say we're going from 2024 to, and we're importing to 2025 1, you might only have a cab file, and so you want to import that, and that's fine. That is doable. Sometimes there's errors if there's version differences that are going to impact the data that you're importing, but it'll tell you if there's any errors, and sometimes you can fix those up once the import is done. So let's watch the video. Okay, so we want to do install solution again. Okay, we want to go and find that. I had already added my cab file in there. So I'm adding that in. I'm not going to add a validation file or a validation, so you can see how it works just fine. I'm not going to overwrite anything, so if there's stuff already there, it's not going to overwrite. And I think in this one, it'll tell you that it didn't overwrite stuff. So this is my install log, tells me all about what happened. But if you go through here, it had data definitions that it was looking at. It was successful importing this. Oh, it didn't import this report style or that report style because there was already a record with that name in it. So if I had a difference in my cab file than what already existed, then I'd probably want to re-import that. All right, let's also look at our installed solution. So you can go back and look at what you installed. So we had installed that check run just recently. And if I'm like, I didn't like that install, let's delete it, you can go and you can delete that install, which will effectively remove any of the changes you made. And there will also be a log for that. That's all I had for exports and imports. I also want to state that, and I think we've discussed this previously, you can, not for applications or layers, but for BAQs, for, I don't know if BPMs you can do it, but you can export BAQs and RDLs on their own. So if you want those elements separate from a solution, you can have those elements just from their forms. So like within a BAQ, you can go to the actions menu or the overflow menu and you can export that BAQ specifically. For an RDL, you can pull it from the report style. You can pull that down locally, or you can pull it from the web portal. So there's also other export and import options for certain elements, but Solution Workbench is really good if you want to export and import like major items or a whole project. It's a lot of flexibility.